I think Toccata is yet another proof that we have one of the best R&D teams in the market. They promised, they delivered, this thing works.
So Toccata activated a ZK verification opcode on layer 1. That gives Kaspa the ability to natively verify zero-knowledge proofs directly on the layer 1. It basically makes based ZK rollups possible.
Unless we see formal verification from very top companies who say, okay, this is signed off, we can put it into production, we're not going to touch it. Because it's not our money. We're not playing with people liquidity using tech which is shiny. It's your financial sovereignty. You build your own blockchain. You build whatever you like with this, and this will be completely yours, isolated, if you like, using strong proof of work settlement from Kaspa layer 1.
Supported by Igra Labs, atomic programmability on a Kaspa block DAG. Kaskad. Use your Kaspa without selling it.
Hi, welcome to XXIM podcast, your home of decentralization. Today, I'm joined by none other than Pavel from Igra Labs. Good to see you, Pavel.
Good to be here, Ankit. Long time, no chat.
I want to get into a lot of topics, a lot of different things today, but how is Igra Labs, broadly speaking?
Doing great. We're in the mainnet for, almost 4 months and counting. And this is the best experience engineer can ever have, to actually see their code, see their product being used by real people without any major incidents. I'm knocking on wood, obviously.
That's great. That's exactly as you say, right? It's the best feelings you have when you deployed something after a long time, right? Kudos to you guys. And I think last time we connected was mid-March. So it's been, 3-ish months, just over 3 months. So look, a topic for us for today is to discuss all things Igra ecosystem, right? But before that, we had something wonderful happen yesterday, actually. So we have to start with the Toccata successful merge / deployment, right? That happened yesterday. Let me ask you this thing. How excited are you for Kaspa's future?
I think Toccata is yet another proof that we have one of the best R&D teams in the market. The quality of delivery, discipline, and overall developer experience is really outstanding. So it's really that's reassuring for us as a part of the Kaspa ecosystem. We know that we can count on these guys. So that's the most important thing. So they promised, they delivered, this thing works. That's the most important part. That's a meta part.
Yeah, I mean, it's huge, right? I've had a couple of sessions. I did actually recently with Manifest. I don't know if you actually happened to check out that episode.
Yeah, I've seen this. And I know Sivan. He's a great guy. We've met in Berlin on Kaspa conference, Kaspa experience. Yeah, I think he's a great addition to the team.
Yeah, I think so. I think he's an amazing guy, a serious builder. He was very serious about what he was doing and driven by the cause, not just, building for the sake of building. Because a lot of people get in, just building because they've been paid or whatever. But I felt at least that was very serious and he cared about all the things he was building, which was amazing. So in case anyone who hasn't checked out the episode, I'll put up a link here, right? So Toccata is essentially the step one towards this native programmability, which means, support for native KCC assets plus ZK verification opcode, a lot more, right? So what I want to do is start with that base from Toccata, right? So let's quickly discuss high level Toccata that directly or indirectly perhaps touches Igra Labs, right? So I could think of two areas. One is the asset part, which I think I spoke to Manifest as well. And the second one is the ZK opcodes, right? Which obviously is a huge area for us to discuss. So let's quickly go through those two parts, and then we can obviously jump onto the Igra ecosystem, which I want to get into today, right? So let's start with the asset, right? Let's start with the assets. Now, I'm going to assume here, if people are going to create simple tokens, right? I'm calling assets/tokens, right? In the future, they will launch natively on L1. That's my assumption, right? Which are these KCC tokens, right? For very simple tokens, and for more complex logic, they will go to Igra Labs, something like Igra Labs, Kaspa, perhaps ERC20, right? Is that how you see things as well in the future when people try to launch new assets?
We don't have to be specific about, again, like which specific rollup or specific solution, which specific stack is used. But yeah, for any kind of complex DeFi logic, you do need a global state. That's there is no way around this. So where exactly this global state is kept and how decentralized this place, it's up for the development team to decide. So obviously, like like there is no one size fits all. If you want to build half centralized solution like ERC20, for example, you can do it. Like it's a completely valid direction. We've seen in 2024 that people use that. So it's again, it's for market to decide if like people want to use this flavor of assets or that flavor of assets. It's also up to institutions and like specific enterprise actors to also decide which kind of standard they want to acquire, they want to use on Kaspa. So this is obviously that's open-ended. But yeah, there is no way like this. There is no global state on Kaspa Layer 1. It's not built for this, and it's good because it's UTXO based. There is like it's completely other way of the different direction, which produce lots of great results. And I'm personally very excited about Covenants specifically. I think Covenants can unlock a lot of like very small focused use cases, which not necessarily compatible with modern DeFi, but they can still solve things. Like you can still build your own small customized vaults. You can build your internal token logic. It's not going to be compatible. It's not going to be fully functional like ERC20. Not the full functionality from ERC20. It will be functional, of course. But yeah, there is very different roles. I think that's actually what's Kaspa core R&D team thesis is. Like there is no one size fits all. You need to unblock all different roads, and then people decide which road they want to take.
Yeah. No, I think really well put, because when you're building the highway network, right, you need small roads, you need big roads, you need back roads, you need everything, right? So this is part of the Kaspa Layer 1 that I think it will unlock a lot of Layer 1 functionality. I mean, technically speaking, outside of Bitcoin Cash, no one has done really, and that's part of the discussion I had with Manifest as well, right? Outside of Bitcoin Cash, I don't think any other Layer 1 has been able to deliver this Covenants plus, the Cash script, Silver script like language, right? Are you aware of anything else? Any other blockchain?
I know small micro blockchains which never made it into the market properly. So yeah, you can say confidently that Kaspa Layer 1 is the first widely used UTXO blockchain with Covenants enabled from yesterday.
Yeah, as of yesterday, exactly. Yeah.
So this is really great tech, and we're looking at it. Obviously, like we think that enabling native assets on Igra make a lot of sense. We essentially, like we did it once with Kaspa. So our ICAS is essentially permissionless version of Kaspa, and we can do it. We're going to implement more or less the same structure for any other native one asset. Just need to give it a little bit of time to let standard settle down a little bit. I mean, the standard is several weeks old, so obviously it needs some time, some discussions. And I'm watching discussion in Kaspa Telegram, Kaspa Core Telegram every day. So it's still like lots of ideas flying around. So it needs to just give it some time to settle and crystallize essentially. So when this standard will be crystallized, then we're going to integrate with this.
Yeah. What about the assets that exist today? Because I got a little bit of that discussion with Manifest, that the assets that exist today, likes of Nacho or Zealous, like the big ones, right? If it's possible to make them backward compatible, I don't know if it's the right word to use, backward compatible. I'm just calling it, to take them to layer one, right? What are your thoughts on that front? Like, because that's what I think Manifest was perhaps insisting, suggesting, not insisting, suggesting that it might be something to consider for the community to consider to take those assets, back to layer one.
It makes total sense. Again, as soon as the standard will surface, and like we're going to have lots of discussions around this, because again, asset standard is not a walk in the park. It's not something you create during the weekend. Like because we're talking about millions of liquidity which can go into this asset. So you have to tread carefully about these things. So how exactly we integrate with layer one native assets and how exactly migration will work, this up for the specific teams. Like they need to decide. Nacho team should decide, or Zeal or whoever have this still like layer one tokens as a part of their previous history. They need to decide how exactly they want to integrate back with the layer one, because obviously it wouldn't make sense to lose all the integration and compatibility with the bigger DeFi world, right? Like currently, for example, Kaspa can be used on any Ethereum compatible blockchain, in any protocol deployed on EVM compatible blockchain. So people transact and swap and can transact and swap any assets on Igra and then bridge it to Ethereum and then do something else. It's ready, it's proven, it's there. So losing all this, obviously, it's not something which team wants. But yeah, I'm sure, but it's not needed even. Like I'm sure it's just a code. Like everything can be properly migrated. You just have to be mindful about requirements. And then yes, again, I'm expecting this to crystallize in upcoming months. And this is something we're very excited about.
Yeah. No, I think as long as the community gets behind it, I think it can be done, right? There will be a process like burn, minting, and consideration, the money they paid on exchanges. I don't know. There are a few different, obviously, moving pieces here that needs to be considered by those respective communities, but can be done, obviously, and perhaps is the right move. But yeah, is it the right time? How much resource you need to know? I think that's each community has to decide for themselves, right?
100%.
Yeah. But the new assets, I think, I'm pretty sure new assets that are going to be building will be deciding between, do I go to layer one or should I go to EVM, right? I think that's perhaps what we're going to see over time.
I think that's the standard we're thinking of will have best from the both worlds. And this is something we were very vocal about, like from the last year, that the covenants essentially allow you to have single reference layer on layer one in terms of supply. And will be your source of truth. So if you want your asset to be fully on layer one, you can have it and you will have it. But you will also have all the flexibility of modern on-chain finance, payments, agentic transactions, everything, like which in regards to token to RC20 standard, which is super flexible. It's big. You have very elaborate implementations of these assets on Ethereum ecosystem. So not to reinvent this wheel, you can just plug in your native assets to Ethereum compatible, to EVM compatible blockchains, and then just enjoy from the trillions of liquidity and trillions of value. So why abandon this? So I don't think there is no fork in the road. You can have both. You have, like we don't abandon Kaspa, right? We still have Kaspa. Then you can bring your Kaspa as ICAS to Igra and borrow some stable coins with this. So imagine you can have this exactly the same path with any layer one native token or layer one covenant token, we calling it. So any covenant token can work exactly like this on Igra or on Ethereum or Base or Arbitrum. It's up to you. we believe in more choices, not in deciding for customer.
I see. Yeah. Let's give them the choices and they can decide for themselves.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. So now outside of assets, right? So Kata does activate this ZK verification opcode, right, on the layer 1, right? So I want to get into ZK, but because it's I think a bigger topic, I want to spend a little bit more time on that. But outside of asset and ZK, do you see any other thing that touches Igra Labs from the Toccata, the hard fork? Any other area where we can discuss before ZK?
Yeah, it's seemingly small, but it's a very important change about lanes, the multi-lanes. Essentially, Toccata introduced a sub-network for every application which works on Kaspa Layer 1, which uses Kaspa Layer 1 as a sequencer, which we still think is one of the core product offerings from Kaspa Layer 1. It's still best sequencer on the market. And now every application uses its own lane. It's a great word. It's a very good term because it's exactly this. You have highway, you have lanes. So every car is using its own lane. So it enables for us essentially storage optimization. So now we don't have to save all the vast amount of data which created with Kaspa Layer 1 to prove Igra state. So we can essentially just shrink node state. So this enables pave the road to light nodes and ultra light nodes, something which we wanted to implement long time ago. But when we saw that essentially Layer 1 help us with this keep 21, then we dropped all our internal designs and then just reused whatever was built for that. So yeah, that's very important. Small but very important addition.
Yeah. Keep 21, right? That's what it will help you
Keep
with.
21 multi-lanes support.
Multi-lane support, right. Awesome. Good to touch upon that as well. So let's come back to the ZK part, which I was saying. So Toccata activated, ZK verification opcode on layer 1. That gives, Kaspa the ability to natively verify zero knowledge proofs directly on the layer 1, right? It makes based ZK rollups possible, right? That's how I see it, right? So let me ask you a broad question first. What is your plan around it, right? Like I know we've discussed a while back about two-stage plan for Igra Labs maybe a year ago. So how are you guys thinking about, based ZK rollups?
Same plan, a bit different timeline. So we were a bit optimistic about zero knowledge production readiness. And we're not talking about Kaspa. We're considering ourselves the part of the bigger ecosystem. Like I still think that the most important part Igra is building is bridges in non-literal and literal sense. Bridges to the wider ecosystem. We believe that no ecosystem is an island, and we should be connected and interconnected with the bigger world when people already solved a lot of problems we're kind of still struggling with. So why should we repeat the same mistakes? So we're looking at zero knowledge advancements in Ethereum Foundation and around. We're watching SP1, other projects, Risk Zero, obviously. Then that's very important parts, moving parts. So there is still gap between beautiful proof of concepts and working systems. Working systems meaning systems which can handle billions of liquidity. And this is recent exploits like Orchid pool from Zcash is something which we have to be mindful about. It's very important examples. So we think that ZKVM should spend some more time in the lab on the stand, so to say, like making all the staging tests. It have to be hardened. The good news is our security assumptions still remain the same. Like the only one place when the zero knowledge ZKVM can help us a lot with user experience, and this is exit bridge. Like we're also very open about this. Our current exit bridge has limitations, and it will have them because we want this to be in par with like overall system security. It has to be sound. So ZK will help us a lot to improve user experience of the exit or of the exit bridge. It will make it more automated. It will help people to exit faster and more often. Everything else, like security of the system, does not depend on zero knowledge, and that's so we can decouple these things. We're not dependent on this timeline, and we're very happy about that because we want to provide service today, not tomorrow. So to put it simple, with ZK, ZK based, obviously, like ZK rollup is still on the desk, but I think it's more of the 2027 kind of story.
Okay. All right. So it's almost next year, some stage. Is it fair to say, like, you guys want to see something happening in that space first before sort of moving there, or is it some more of the research part that has to be done?
No research. I can tell you like very specific things. So we already we know how ZK VM will work. How ZK VM will be integrated to our stack. Essentially, Multitude is one is a good example. We already know how to plug in new VMs into our data pipeline. So we can put it in production, I think, I don't know, in 2-3 months time. It's not a problem. But it would be very like it would be super responsible to do this with any significant liquidity. We're definitely going to test this technology for 6-9 months to see how it's working, and also watch kind of bigger world developments to see how Ethereum Foundation actually approach this problem, and how exactly they think about putting this specific implementations of zero knowledge into production. So this is it's like we have to be very careful with this with the tech, which is beautiful, but still have a long road until like it can handle liquidity comparable with traditional EVM models, for example. Lindiness is important. Battle proven is important. Remember that zero knowledge still have a very high costs for audits, for example, and we're not putting into production anything which doesn't have a formal audit behind it. And we think this is the only way which people should approach this. I don't understand how else you can think about this. So this is, I mean, yeah, it's like with Solidity. Okay, you can test. Now these days you can use a lot of tools to check Solidity code for you, but then still you should have additional peer review, additional several like people looking at your code and telling you, have you thought about this? It's not actually about code. It's about your code being part of the bigger system. And this is where like audits and formal certification is the necessary part of the bigger game. Nothing wrong with putting new tech, frontier tech for $500,000 of liquidity, but for 550 or $500 million, this is not something you should do. That's how we think. We're not saying it's for everybody, but that's our way of approaching these problems.
Yeah, a bit more conservative approach. You want to see what's happening outside in the ecosystem, especially on the Ethereum side where it really grew, right? And I think you touched upon another important point, which is the cost. So cost, obviously, audit side, but also cost on the proof generation side.
It's I think it's an engineering problem / ops problem, which is solvable. It has a very high costs, but for example, Michael Sutton's design for parallel proving is solve most of these problems. So it becomes an engineering problem. How exactly you run your provers? There is an economical aspect to that. You have to solve it. You have to put these costs elsewhere. But I mean, I'm not saying that fee market for provers is solved.
Yeah, the fee market is I think it hasn't been solved. I think obviously there are marketplaces now, but I don't think it's fully solved. Especially when the GPU prices went up recently, right? Like, when everything went up end of last year, I think it pushed the prices up for everything.
If market will price it, if customers of these applications, and again, we shouldn't forget that we're building products for people That's very important. We're not like we're saying we're building infrastructure, but it's like we're building rails, but we don't care about people who travel, people who use trains essentially. But that's wrong, right? We're building trains. We help to build trains as well. So applications should find customers who actually care about the way state is proven. If they think that, if the customers will think, okay, this zero knowledge way of solving my problem is better than any other way, and they're ready to pay in fees or in any other way, then it's solved, right? Right, you're ready to pay for your security. It's like you're paying your bank some monthly fees because you believe that bank is doing a great job for it. Or you have your own some other software which keeps your keys safe, for example, right? So you price in your security. So same, if people were ready to pay like 10 cents instead of 1/10 of cent for transaction, then this will fly. But again, market should tell this.
Yeah. So I guess just pulling back a bit, ZK is very, very new tech. Like EVM has been around for a long time, but I think ZK as a whole is just coming now into deployment across, Ethereum ecosystem and perhaps other ecosystem. So, but pulling back a bit, right? If you were to go down this path next year, some stage, does that mean rewriting everything? Because you'll have to do ZK proof generation somehow, proof submission and verification, right? Post ZK to Kaspa layer 1, they might canonical bridges, blah blah blah, exit bridges, as you said. So there's a lot of work that needs to go into it, right? It's a big job, for layer 2s.
All building blocks are there, so maybe I'm too optimistic, and my team will be super unhappy to hear this. But I think we're speaking.
This is the story every time, Pavel. This is a story every time I need Mike Zach on the call.
Oh yeah. Look, compressing like the AI definitely AI agentic coding definitely compress timelines tenfold, or at least threefold for many products. So this is very like this is not a trivial task, but given you have already proven ZKVM and we already have this data pipeline, so we know how it works, how exactly handle reorgs, and this was one of the hardest parts. And everything else, if we put EVM on top of it, and again, we're strong believers into reusing EVM, not because we like 10 years old tech, it's because we want to have turnkey developer experience, so people can reuse existing code and protocols and focus on building business logic and not on reinventing the wheel. So assuming you put ZK EVM on top of our data pipeline, everything else is relatively trivial. So this is not a problem. As I said, the problem is to get this proven ZK VM, which we believe in, which we trust. Question of trust is very important, and our industry has this motto, which is I strictly believe in: don't trust, verify. And unless we see like formal verification from like very top companies who say, okay, this is signed off, we can put it into production, like we're not going to touch it, because it's not our money. Like it's not our, we're not playing with people liquidity using tech which is shiny. Unfortunately, we're very boring people.
There are some companies though, like within the Ethereum ecosystem. I think Matic might have been one, who used to be Matic, Polygon to Matic. I think they have ZVM, right? So I mean, there is a lot to discuss on that front, but given the time limitation we have, I want to move forward. Toccata out the way. Let's focus on Igra, right? So on the 19th of June, right? So recently, 2 weeks ago, you guys did your half-a-day technical meetup, right? Igra meetup. So that was, I think, first of your meetups that you guys did, Igra did. So give us some highlights and key takeaways that stood out to you, like, some highlights from that event.
Yes, it was first event we ever did. Also, it was a home event. Like the first thing we did something in Berlin. We did it with the Kaspa Berlin community. So we're really happy that this collaboration worked perfectly.
How big is the Kaspa Berlin community? Sorry, Pavel. How big is the community there?
There's several beautiful people there. Like it's not huge, but yeah, you can see that like the energies compensates the numbers, like quality over quantity for sure. So we decided, it was very short notice. I think we decided it like 3 weeks before the date that we're doing this, that the stars aligned essentially for us and for Kaspa community. But we had our thing, our agenda with Multitude, and Kaskad. We also wanted to like give the spotlight to it, but Toccata was even more important. We wanted to spread the word that Toccata is there, and it's important. It's one of its most important release this year, obviously, with hard work. So it was very. I'm happy that we did it, and I'm happy with the result. To be honest, what like the learning is these days, your audience is mostly online. So we had 30-something people in the audience, and which is people told us that it was part of the Berlin Blockchain Festival, Berlin Blockchain Week. People told us it was one of the most visited events. I don't know, maybe it's stocks, maybe it's pizza, but those both things, worked really well together. But then in the end, the whole event was something like 3 hours of live translation. Big kudos to CryptoPumps, Jer, great job, and Tom, also our videographer. So the media materials, top notch. We're going to share them very soon. Still some editing need to be done. So now we have lots of things to share with community. But what I was about to say, the online viewers count was 1,500, like 1,500 people, not just watching the short movie reel or something, like 3 hours. Like people were watching for 3 hours. They were engaged. They were chatting about this. It was really great to see. Like imagine this, like 1,500 people.
1,500 people. Seriously, that's huge.
Yes. What? Yes. Just for the boring tech talks, because we specifically never apart from Kaskad, which was Jack was talking exactly about making business on Kaspa. Everything else was about tech. Alex's presentation about Silverscript and covenants and atomic swaps was highly technical, and people were watching this, and I hope they were making notes. So this was our bet on people who still want to build something new. They still want to build in the blue ocean, and Kaspa is still blue ocean, right? Like this space is still not yet taken. This ecosystem is still super vibrant and people want to build. So this is why I also expect a lot of interesting things to come out of covenants. So yeah, the biggest highlight is people are there. They're very engaged and they want to build. So this has happened, and yeah, super grateful to Kaspa community, Elliot and Seb, like who prepared this. People who appeared, like I definitely cannot remember all the names, but yeah, thanks everybody who helped us, Web3 Hub for organizing this, everybody who showed up. It was a very important event for us, and I hope for Kaspa too.
That's amazing. 1,500 people. I'm trying to think. There's a lot of people showed up for 3 hours technical discussion, right? I mean, I know on the podcast we get people, but man, that's like people sitting there exact same time because it's happening live. Kudos to you guys, and obviously amazing, job. And perhaps one of the lessons could be do it online next time, maybe, Pavel.
Save the costs, exactly. But then it's a good question. If we can get the same energy without people in the room, because you need eyes, you need reactions. We're still human. We need other human interaction. Also, we had a very interesting talks afterwards, like some post talks. We had this mingling phase, and yeah, we heard very interesting things from other industries. People were super curious about Kaspa. That's why proof of work still these days. So we were happy to share the word. So yeah, it's also important part of the event.
Beautiful. All right. So let's move on to one of the words you just mentioned, which is this exciting news of Igra Multitude. So I think the first time I came across was earlier this week. It was a couple of days ago, right? So you guys announced Igra Multitude. Tell us, what is Multitude? Why you're so excited by it?
It's your financial sovereignty. Like, you build your own blockchain. You build whatever you like with this, and this will be completely yours, isolated, if you like, environment, execution environment, using strong proof of work settlement from Kaspa Layer 1. In a simple word, it's something like OpStack, but on Kaspa, without centralized element, without centralized sequencer, without centralized operator, and with better security. Because proof of work, we believe, provides better security than proof of stake. Essentially, we allow any team now build whatever we build, but again, without even need to take all the code, deploy the solution, and maintain it. So we can actually maintain your execution environment for you, but then you can build whatever application you like. So any app team can have their own app chain in the same manner as we have Igra, with their own governance, fee markets, VM customization. You can think, for example, Hyperlit is a good example. Like, many teams want to build their own trading platform, but they don't want to use other people's infrastructure or to be part of Arbitrum for some reason, because Hyperlit is still heavily dependent on this. So if you want to build your own party on your own street, you can do it now. And it still will be connected, if you like, with Kaspa, with Ethereum, with any other ecosystem you'd like. So if you want to have access to liquidity, you can have it. So it's exactly the same way any other blockchain works today, any other EVM blockchain works today. We just have our own solution for that, which we believe is lean and much more flexible.
Okay. I would want you to simplify it further. So let me start. To simplify it, it's like a independent execution zones, right? So right now, everything that goes through Igra is like a shared EVM essentially, right? And then I want to go through simplify it even further, but I think that's like, I want to start from here and then we can have like a bit more longer discussion. So everything is shared right now. This gives you your own lane essentially, right? We were discussing about lane. I think perhaps that's a good analogy for this episode. So it gives you your independent execution zone with its own benefits. Because it's independent, it gives you some benefits. So if you're deploying some application, you, instead of going to shared EVM, you can go here. Yeah, is that sort of a good starting point?
It's a great starting point, yes. Instead of sharing EVM, and share the same economics and whatever property and governance properties with Igra, for example, you can build your own market, your own chain, your own rules. For example, you can have highly optimized VM, which does only, for example, Uniswap compatible trades or Hyperliquid compatible trades. So you can have several contracts which are embedded into VM. It's also known as precompiles. So this logic is precompiled into the VM, and thus this VM process these calls like 10 times faster and more optimized than normal EVM. And then you have highly optimized fast application, which tailor-made for your needs. So you essentially have app chain. Another example, which you also have already on the website, is quantum secure zones, for example. Quantum security is a very important topic. It's good. Like, until 2030, I think everybody should be ready for that, for this transformation. I'm not going to dive into this topic, and I think like Shai did a really great job explaining this to the public, as he's, I think, one of the best experts I know in this matter. But in very simple terms, you cannot have mixed VM between quantum resistant and non-resistant operations execution. If your execution is quantum resistant, if your signatures are quantum resistant, they should be separated. You cannot mix these assets in the same zone. So for entities and organizations who want to build, for example, quantum secure treasury, they need separated, dedicated execution zone. And this is exactly what you can build with Multitude. You can have this zone, you can have this quantum secure version of assets. That's it. And this you can build with Multitude. This this one of the use cases. Another use case, like fully gasless transactions. You can sponsor, for example, transactions for your users, or the other way around. You can have a fee market, for example, which also may be very popular on Kaspa, where people maybe pay more, but all these fees will go directly to Kaspa layer 1 miners without a chain operator to keep even fraction of these costs. So this is completely flexible, because currently every blockchain has its own, it's like, singleton. Like there is only one set of configuration parameters set in its genesis. It's immutable. If you want to change it, you need to hard fork, and then you have again just one version of this blockchain. And we saw that Kaspa can handle, and again, this is all was originated by Michael Sutton's research about logic zones on Kaspa layer 1. We saw that Kaspa actually can handle this. Kaspa as a sequencer can handle these separations of zones. Like there is the architecture allows it to parallelize it without with the same performance as one zone. You can have 10 zones, for example. So it's a beautiful tech, and yeah, we're really happy to share it with community and specifically with the potential design partners.
Yeah, I think I'm still learning. I still need to spend more time, but I want to ask you some perhaps basic question and perhaps do a little bit of back and forth with you on this because I found it quite unique and quite interesting. So if I'm a builder, I'm building on Igra. I've decided I'm going to build on Igra, right? So why would I consider Multitude instead of a shared EVM? What benefits do I get? Like what am I getting outside of perhaps speed is the obvious one, faster execution, right? These are the two main things.
Sovereignty, and it's another notion which comes sovereignty, which comes from Jonathan. This time we're learning, we're listening. And we see that this is very important for many teams to have this, not only because of cultural, because of simply business requirements. Like some people want to have their own thing which is not connected to other things. Another example, for example, why would you need that? If you're a very compliant business, and there are many businesses like this, most businesses on planet Earth still compliant, you will need to do KYC on your users. You cannot have deployments from anonymous builders. You cannot have assets which not whitelisted. This is a reality. This is how bank works. Most banks works like this way. You cannot have all things which just people come and deploy, which is not legal, because you will be, as a blockchain operator, you will be responsible for that. This is very important reality, which is already here. Today, Mika starts working in full in Europe. And as someone who lives in Europe, I have to be very mindful of that. So we designed Multitude also for teams who wants independence, because that's their compliance requirement. So if you want to make full KYC and only whitelist people who transact, users who transact on your chain, now you can do it. With Igra, you cannot. Igra today is fully neutral infrastructure, and it's governed by Igra DAO, by voters. So if tomorrow voters will decide to shut down, for example, or shut down network, or change some fee properties, or to deploy some precompile which will benefit one entity and put some other entities in trouble, then we will do it, because DAO controls it. It's permissionless. Like if DAO votes for it, you can do it. It's for some businesses, it's a trade-off which they don't want to take. So they want independence. They want to build their own thing, which they control, and still have all the benefits of security and decentralization. So the beautiful thing is we don't have to currently introduce centralized element like sequencer, like most of the L2s in Ethereum world has, and still have fully independent execution zone for your business, for your use case.
One thing you said just now, you said in case Igra doesn't exist, it can still survive.
Igra will exist because it's already what's the right word for that? Imperishable. It's imperishable from the end of February when we released the first node version, and it's already like everyone can send their transactions directly to layer 1. That's what Based Rollup is. So even if our team will disappear, like chain will still exist. It just will require node operators who still maintain this. It will require some knowledge from us, obviously, because we still have a lot of expertise on things if they need to be upgraded and expanded. But even if we disappear tomorrow, Igra will continue to run. That's the beauty of Based Rollup. That's why it's still like I'm fighting this. I think it's already lose battle. But I'm still fighting the notion of layer 2 because this makes a huge disservice. Like it's a shortcut which is wrong. It's a shortcut which leads you to the different road. Like you're not actually shortcutting anything. Igra is not layer 2. Igra is Based Rollup. It's different category.
I'm assuming there is a fee that is associated to running on Multitude.
Yeah, if you need, it depends on your route. Like if you want to use our infrastructure, for example, our nodes, and you just have to set up VM with your own configuration, it's one route, so there is one price. If you want to have your own dedicated infrastructure for everything, just have us as as your contractors for several months until you run it fully by yourself. Then it's different model. We're very flexible in this regard, so we're sure that we have models for every team, and we can find a solution for every team. It's just that this team should appreciate the unique security model of Igra, which is fully inherited as from Kaspa Layer 1. So with this out of the road, I think everything else is just it's just small details.
Yeah. So do you have any applications in mind, or have you spoken to any builders when you guys build the Multitude? Was it like, hey, this needs to exist because XYZ is telling us to make this happen?
Yeah, we have two teams which we're already kind of in the process with. One of them building essentially Hyperliquid, simplified. They want to build their own trading platform for their own customers because they have very specific list of customers, and they want to just help them to have access to this kind of tech, and they want to customize it very heavily, starting from UI, ending with some very unique algorithms. And the other team is just want to have access for liquidity. They just want to have access to Ethereum, essentially, Kaspa, whatever. So they just can on-ramp or off-ramp things. So this is also, we essentially, in this case, we just a bridge. And we have no problem with also stating this. So Igra, and it's like, you can see Igra essentially as your bridge between ecosystems as well. That's also something we provide. If you just put aside all the specific applications which can be built on top of it, even its core form, it's already bridge between ecosystems, and many teams just want to plug into that and just have their own, again, dedicated environment which they control, and they don't want anyone else to deploy there. All they want is just process, just Rails. So it's also it's a very small and boutique subset of bigger EVMs. You don't even need big EVM for that. That's why we're very excited about using Ethrex, for example. It's very small, focused EVM client, much smaller than traditional, than Reth, for example. So it can be used for these use cases as well.
I mean, we can spend so much time on Multitude, but do you think vProgs were also going to be the similar thing, right? I mean, broadly speaking, vProgs, when they are out, might be sovereign progs, basically, that will allow people to build the application on top of it, right? That's how I saw it.
Multitude is your pre-vProg.
I see.
As simple as that. This is our take. This is our implementation of the architecture without zero knowledge part, which we're happy to decouple from because of the things I already spoke about.
So in case you're building or thinking of building on vProgs, you can try it out on Multitude? Is that what you mean?
if you have if you have an idea of sovereign application, which you think you have a product and business model, you can build it on Multitude. So you can test it already today. You can see if your model is working, and then just later, if vprox will do your job for you better, then you can switch to it. We're not saying we're fully compatible on code level, but I keep saying code is not as important as your idea. You need to solve something for people. You don't need to code just because you like to code. Especially these days when AI is doing coding better for you, essentially. So it's the hardest problem. As ex-engineer, I think that these days less and less hard coding problems are left. Most of things already solved. You have all algorithms, all libraries in place, all primitives are there. The real hard problem is how you solve other people's problems, how you help them to live better life, how you help them to spend less time on churning tasks, how you create new markets, how you create new services. This is genuinely hard. Coding is not so. So if you have your idea, come test it with us.
Beautifully put. So let's move forward from Multitude to something more exciting, which is the TVL. So now, 3.5 months in, Igra is, it's getting a lot of DeFi, right, applications. So you've deployed a few applications. And one of the things I noticed actually was within 3.5 months, you've got, 4.5 million in DeFi liquidity, which was beautiful for, such a short amount of time.
Yeah, I feel really good because that's, for us, it's one of the major metrics. So I wanted to grow faster, obviously. I really that's my problem. I never happy with what we have. I always dream about what we can have. I should work on this. But honestly, that was a great feeling having this in first weeks. It was really, I think in 4 and 5 weeks, we had this 4 something million of on-chain assets. So this is not TVL, not DeFi Llama counted TVL, because people will check it. And yes, you're right, DeFi TVL is very strict on their methodology. They exclude lots of assets. They excluded stake at Igra, for example. So this is fair. They also excluded some Kaskad Vault metrics. Now it's added back. But what I want to say is, it's the best thing you can have, people actually using your product, and TVL is what DeFi is measured with. So this is good, and it's, I think, biggest kudos go to Kaskad and ZealousSwap teams, because that's essentially their BizDev activities brought first liquidity providers to major liquidity providers to Igra and Kaspa ecosystem. So we think that it's very important. This activity it's currently stalled because the major crypto market experienced, as we all know, 2 months ago, we had again this major crash. So obviously people sitting on their backs trying to decide what to do with them. But it's a downside of being part of the bigger ecosystem, right? I was just advocating for us building bridges, but that's also what comes with bridges. It's also you start to be correlated with macro, and the crypto correlated with macro, and now Igra is correlated with macro as well. So this is it is what it is. But we're working actively, and we know that Kaskad team working also actively on bringing more liquidity providers to the ecosystem. And now the biggest driver, what we saw, it's numbers, nothing else, is exactly the use case we were building for, the first use case we were building for, unlocking utility of Kas, leveraging your Kas, right? As a Kaspa holder, I still don't understand what's good with Kaspa, which is just sitting on your cold wallet doing nothing, if you can leverage it. And Kaskad unlocked just that. You can supply Kaspa ICAS as collateral and borrow stable coins, and then just use them for millions of different use cases, from paying your rent or making leveraging loops, for example, which may be a questionable strategy, as you coming from banking background, so you understand what I'm talking about. Looping is also what got our industry in trouble last year. But there is no good and bad in this market. It's if people use your platform, then they have the reasons. If they want to be liquidated when market goes down, they can do it. But so Kaskad and Zealous unlocked Kaspa, and we hope that this is just the beginning.
The numbers are kind of irrelevant for me because it shows the appetite of the community to do these things, which are, one of the things that really stood out to me when I was looking at the numbers was Kaskad's borrowed number, which was almost $1 million worth of assets that were borrowed, which I thought was very telling sign that people are actually actively using these assets, which is great.
I agree. Kaskad did a great job bringing one of the core financial instruments of on-chain finance. I think lending is the essential. It's just essentially your bank. Then you can build everything on top of that. If you have credit lines, if you have ways to leverage your assets, then everything else is just building Legos on top of this.
Yeah. So anything else you're seeing on the DeFi side outside of these two dApps that are already being deployed?
Of course, we're eagerly waiting. I know that several teams are working on this. It's not an easy task. It's not an easy task. But again, building perps, hyperliquid style clubs, trading platforms. Essentially, we need to be in par with centralized exchanges, right? And centralized exchanges provide very fast, very user-friendly experience for trading assets. So we think that this is also a very important part. And tech is there, by the way. We have our own design for that. So we never executed on this, but if you just want to build this, talk to us, we can help. Then there's also part of not just copy pasting existing things, like with this hyperliquid idea. There's also true innovation, and we're really excited about Zealous building Flow, which is continuously clearing markets, which is super new. Nobody did this before in the bigger ecosystem. It's essentially your automatic market maker without slippage, without market manipulation. So this is currently on testnet, and we hope they're going to release it soon. But maybe you should speak with Blues and Remy. They ask them.
Yeah, you got me excited, man. I love market making. It's one of the things I genuinely love. So I need to talk to them, Lewis.
Zealous is a great team. They have this ratio between doing and talking, which is 90% of doing and 10% of talking. And so it's they know they know their thing. They know their markets. So it's really, so I'm super excited about Flow. Also, I know Kaskad is working on several improvements of the markets, but currently it's also very important to stabilize things and bring more liquidity providers, which is, we already have this 3% on stable coins on Igra, which is not bad, I would say, for a new protocol. And so I think for liquidity providers is also very cool. As Jack mentioned this in his talk in Berlin, that one of the ways you can use lending platforms is to short asset, right? You borrow, you sell, and then you essentially have your short position against Kaspa. Interesting thing that nobody's shorting Kaspa on Igra. I understand the sentiment, but at the same time, you have to be, if you're a trader, you have to be, all these things should be relevant to you. No sentiment, just market. But it's interesting to see that people, even liquidity providers, they don't short Kaspa, which tells you something about this ecosystem.
Yeah, I think it's retail heavy, though. Retail typically don't short anything. Retail is typically long only positions. But liquidity providers is different. They might want to short asset, depending on obviously how they hedge themselves. But fascinating. And now one other separate area I wanted to touch was agents, right? Autonomous agents, AI agents. There's a lot happening on that front. So why don't we quickly touch upon it?
Kaspa Agent looks really, really good. We like the team, we like the speed, we like the dedication, and like they really and grit. They want to build fast and maybe break some things, but then they move very fast. So this is essentially agentic marketplace, which based already on deployed permissionless standards on Igra. So this is one thing. We see several projects, including Kaspa.com and Kaskad and ZealousSwap using essentially agents to transact. There is agentic skills available for every project. And I can see that almost like every builder in our ecosystem use autonomous agents this way or another, including myself. Like there is agent who is doing things, who is testing chain daily, who is reporting, who is helping me. Like my thesis is very simple. I think the biggest impediment of crypto adoption is self-custody and user experience. Wallets, with all my love to like there's wallet application teams, this problem is really hard to solve flawlessly. It's really like you still have all this multiple models, buttons. It's so convoluted, and agents solving it for you without losing security if you know what you're doing. Very soon, this industry is going to have a standard for agentic wallets, which will be like widely acquired, like expected to crystallize in upcoming months. Just like all the standards will be adopted, and then every agent will just use the same vault standard or the trusted execution, whatever, just for keeping your phrase, and then everything else is just a breeze. I already made several demos, several examples shared in my socials. Essentially, agents doing bridging, swapping, whatever you like, and then all this complexity is taken away from you. Also, Seb is working on like a very similar concept in his project, and just building agentic user interface, which is again just a command line. It's the most convenient interface. You can use your voice, you can type, but then you can use your natural language, essentially intent, right? Like the agent provides you with intent. You provide agent with intent, and then everything else will be done by agent. And this is if done right. If we as an industry just quickly integrate it in every product we build, then retail will come, because everything we're building is makes sense, right? Everybody who worked with trade finance, with traditional finance, with banks, with all these institutions understand that crypto is the future rails of finance. It's a given. It's working. Ask Stripe, ask Visa what they're using. They're using stable coins rails for everything. So retail will come. It's just it's just a question of time. So yeah, I'm still super bullish about agents.